Hello. In this video, I'll help you get started on the Chapter 5 homework. All the exercises in your homework cover the worksheet, adjusting entries, and the financial statements, the 4th, 5th, and 6th steps in the 9-step accounting cycle. Let's start with question 1 and Benjamin Company. At the top is the listing of accounts and below that are 3 adjustments. Step 1 is to transfer the account balances for each account to the trial balance columns of the worksheet. Cash is the first account listed in the worksheet and we transfer $61,300 into the debit side of the trial balance column because cash is an asset and, with only few exceptions, assets have a normal debit balance. Next is the accounts receivable account with $20,800 and the supplies account with $7,300. These accounts also have a normal debit balance, and that is why they are entered into the debit side of the trial balance columns. Make sure that you think about whether the account has a normal debit or a normal credit balance. For instance, the accumulated depreciation and the accounts payable accounts are 2 accounts with a normal credit balance. It's easy to make a mistake. So, double-check that your total debits equal the total credits for the trial balance column before you move on. Sometimes you can find your mistake quickly by subtracting the total debit amount from the total credit amount and dividing it by 2. That will tell you if you entered an amount on the incorrect side. If that isn't helpful, you'll have to examine each account, one by one, and determine where you made a mistake. In step 2, you'll enter the 3 adjustments into the adjustment column. Just like we have done in prior exercises, we use the 3-step process for determining debits and credits. Let's analyze the first adjustment together. In the first adjustment, we learn that supplies were used up in the amount of $5,300. Let's check first what amount we have on the trial balance for supplies. It's $7,300. So, if we had $7,300 in supplies and now we used up $5,300, that means that supplies decreased. In addition, our supplies expenses have now increased because they have been used up. The words used up or expired indicate that something is now an expense. So, the account supplies expenses have increased, supplies expenses are an expense account, and expense account increases with debits. That means we have to debit supplies expenses for $5,300. The second part of our transaction is that the account supplies decreased, supplies are an asset, and assets increase with debits and decrease with credits. That means that we have to credit the supplies account for $5,300. Please continue with the other adjustments but be sure to remember that every transaction has 2 parts, at least 1 debit and 1 credit. And, double-check that the total debits and credits balance. The third step for this question is to fill out the adjusted trial balance column by looking at the trial balance column amount, like for instance, cash was $61,300. We had no adjustments in the adjustments columns for cash. So, the amount that we enter in the adjusted trial balance columns for cash is also $61,300. The same applies to the accounts receivable account. However, the supplies account had $7,300 in the debit side of the trial balance, and a credit amount of $5,300 in the credit side of the adjustments section. That means we have to subtract the credit from the debit amount, which leaves us with a $2,000 debit in the adjusted trial balance column. Also, double-check your adjusted trial balance totals to make sure they balance. Question 2 states that the firm reports net income of $82,000 prior to making adjusting entries for expired rent, depreciation expense, and supplies that were used up. You need to think about what impact these adjusting entries have on the net income of the company and how big the error is. Is the net income overstated or understated? In question 3, we are looking at the completed worksheet of Montoya Corporation as of December 31st. The last 2 sections of the worksheet show the income statement and the balance sheet and you are tasked with preparing the income statement, the statement of owner's equity and the balance sheet from the information in those 2 sections. What I have done here is remove the trial balance, adjustments, and the adjusted trial balance column so that it's a little easier working with the financial statements and the worksheet side by side. The first financial statement we need to prepare is the income statement because we need the net income from the income statement for the statement of owner's equity, and we need the ending capital from the statement of owner's equity for the balance sheet. All of the accounts listed in the income statement columns of the worksheet need to be entered into the income statement, starting with fees income of $97,500. Next, you'll enter the expenses in the expense section of the income statement and calculate the net income. The worksheet tells us what the net income is. Be sure that your income statement shows the same amount. Next is the statement of owner's equity. The statement of owner's equity shows how much the owner has contributed to the business, earned from the business, and withdrawn in funds. We start with the capital at the beginning of the year and enter that amount into the statement of owner's equity. Next, we list the income and subtract from it the drawings. What is left to do is calculate the ending capital balance for this statement of owner's equity. Now that we know the ending capital balance for Montoya, we can complete the balance sheet. We start by listing all of the assets, followed by the liabilities, and finally the ending capital balance from the statement of owner's equity. Both sides of the balance sheet should balance. The fourth question tests your knowledge about adjusting entries and recording those adjusting entries in the general journal. Let's look at the required adjustments. The first question requires that you calculate how much of the prepaid rent has now been used up and should be recorded as a rent expense. The second question has you record supplies expenses, like we did in the first exercise of this chapter, and the third part requires that you calculate and record depreciation expenses. Please revisit the lecture videos that cover these topics in detail, and don't forget that every transaction has two parts and to apply the three-step process for determining debits and credits. I hope this overview over the Chapter 5 homework was helpful and you now feel more confident in completing the assignments. Don't hesitate to reach out to me with any questions.